Hello, my name is Tammy Tacker, and I am a member of the math faculty for Purdue University Global. Today, we are going to talk about how to make fun discussion questions in online math classes. Here's an example of a typical discussion question. Students are asked to work some type of math problem, and in mathematics, it is very easy to get so caught up in making sure the students perform a certain procedure or calculation that sometimes we forget that we also need to show the students why this procedure is important and how they might use it outside of math class. If we make a connection between the math and their life, they will see the need to learn it and might even remember it. This example of a discussion question has the student prove their competency in solving a quadratic equation. And as an instructor, we may give the students a list of quadratics and let them choose one, or we may direct them to a list of quadratic equations in the text and ask them to pick one from there. I especially enjoy the opportunity for the student to choose their favorite method for solving a quadratic because everyone has a favorite method, right? The student shows that they can perform the operation by answering this discussion question, but it is not very exciting. There's no connection to the student's life outside of math class or how this specific skill is used. Even the requirements to reply to their classmates are boring. These are called guided peer replies. The instructor asks the students to reply to their classmates in a certain way by performing a certain task. Even if a student enjoys math and likes quadratic equations, they are still not going to have fun while posting on this discussion board. Let's see how just a little change in the discussion question can make a big impact on the perception of not only the topic of quadratics, but the discussion board itself. What if the discussion question put the student in a situation where they are a human cannonball? The same tasks and skills are required, but the student immediately makes a connection with how the topic connects to the world outside of math class. It makes the question real to the student. They can imagine themselves in this situation, and it gives them an idea of why we are talking about quadratics in math class. In this particular discussion question, the students are given the formula and told that y equaling 0 means that they have landed on the ground. And as a side note, they are given direction on what initial velocity, v, and what height off the ground, h, to choose. They pick the initial velocity and starting height using the guidelines from the instructor and solve the quadratic equation. They wind up with two answers, but one of them is negative. The negative answer forces them to make a logical decision about whether that is a legitimate answer or not. Again, this discussion question requires the same task and skill as the other one. It's just more fun. If the instructor does choose to use guided peer replies, there are several options to further the discussion about this particular topic. A classmate may find the height of the human cannonball at different times. Maybe the instructor gives a height and the classmates are asked to find the times for that height. One classmate could find the vertex of the parabola representing the quadratic equation. This could be extremely useful if the human cannonball is being shot while inside a building. The student could determine whether the initial velocity and starting height are safe for the restrictions of the building. One practical guided reply could be to check the classmates' solutions. All of us, as math instructors, wish students would check their work more often. This gives a classmate the opportunity to check another classmate's work, which can build some community in an online course. The last example of a guided peer reply that asks students to come up with a situation that led to their classmate being shot out of a cannon. Now, this may strike us as instructors as a little odd, but think about the students in our math classes. Some love numbers and some do not. Some are very anxious about being in a math class. By allowing a student who does not feel confident in mathematics to write they have the opportunity to feel confident. They get to do something they know they are good at in a class they don't feel good about. This can help relieve some of the anxiety they feel in our classes because they know they will earn full credit for this part of the discussion question. It also allows students to show their creativity and personality in a subject where that's not usually the case. Let's look at some suggestions for developing discussion questions our students can really get excited about. When my colleague and I were developing new discussion questions for our courses, we were kind of worried our department chair would not approve of the little bit of humor we wanted to include in the discussion questions. We were not proposing that instructors needed to be clowns or put on a comedy routine, but we did feel that incorporating just a bit of lightheartedness would put our students at ease. We did not want to compromise course content on any level. After all, our primary goal is to teach. Content comes first. There is research showing that humor relaxes students and allows them to learn more effectively. Imagine a student who is not comfortable with math stating that they are excited about coming to class. This happens when the discussion questions are engaging and fun. The students look forward to seeing what new connections will be made between typical math concepts and the outside world. By making those connections, they will be more apt to remember the concept, which will increase their performance on assessments. So don't be afraid to put a little humor into math classes and discussion boards in order to put students at ease. The research is there to back you up. The use of guided peer replies can also be a great tool. They give students direction on how to reply instead of some vague requirement to reply to their classmates. By asking the students to take the problem one step further in a reply, instructors reinforce course content and allow students to make connections between processes. The instructions for any discussion question should be very specific. Students have a right to know exactly what is expected of them. This can be achieved by writing good directions and providing an example. On the human cannonball problem, the instructor could work an example with numbers that the students cannot use. For example, if students are told to use an initial velocity, v, between 80 and 120 feet per second, the instructor could work a problem with an initial velocity of 75 feet per second. This allows the student to see exactly what needs to be done and gives them an idea of how to format their math problem as they are trying to type it out, which is a whole other new concept. Also, give the students a rubric stating how points are distributed. Share how much the reply to the discussion question is, along with how many points can be earned by replying to classmates. This is valuable information for them and can help you settle grade disputes before they even begin. Another hint on how to create a fun discussion question is to let a colleague help. It's always good to have someone to bounce ideas off of. Sit down and talk about the goal of the discussion question and how to write directions to minimize confusion by students. When we write a discussion question, we know what we want, and the question may make total sense to us. Others could be confused, though. Send a coworker the discussion question and let them answer with no additional instruction from you. If they answer the way you expected, that's great. If not, ask for advice about how to make the directions clearer so students will not have the same issue. Also, be flexible with discussion questions. Allow students to be creative and humorous when possible. Allow students to think of things in a different way and maybe even submit the assignment in a different way. Give students the option to use technology to fulfill the requirements of the discussion question, like making a video. Some students will feel more comfortable making a short video where they talk about a concept and maybe even literally show an example of how that concept is used outside of math class. Unfortunately, instructors should also be prepared to change the numbers in their discussion questions. Former students will share their answers with current students. By changing the choices of numbers to use in a problem, the chance of plagiarism can be reduced. For example, in the human cannonball problem, an instructor may ask students to use an initial velocity between 70 and 100 feet per second in one term. Then in the next term, change the initial velocity to between 100 and 125 feet per second. If the population of your course includes students of various ages, have the students use their age as a variable in a discussion question. Little items like this that are relatively easy for an instructor to do will discourage cheating. Here are some discussion question ideas for other topics in math classes. If the topic is exponential equations, ask the students to find the amount of caffeine in one serving of their favorite beverage, then have them calculate how much caffeine would be left in their system after a certain number of hours. Or ask them how long it would take to be left with a certain amount of caffeine. An extension on this topic would be a discussion on caffeine itself. The students can investigate how much caffeine is considered unsafe and how much of their favorite beverage they would have to consume to reach that level. The discussion could also turn towards sleep and how much caffeine affects sleeping patterns. Then the student could figure a cutoff time for caffeine in order to maximize their sleep cycle. If the learning outcomes for a course include measurement, ask the students to design a shed. This mini project can include several types of measurement, including perimeter for baseboards and outside lights, area for flooring, roofing, and paint, along with volume for soil and mulch in the surrounding flower beds. Require students to shop online for material and then find the total cost for these options. The student can also be asked to find the dimensions in both the US and metric systems. If radical equations are in your lineup for a course, one practical application of radical equations is a trapeze. The simple pendulum equation uses the length of a pendulum and the gravitational constant to calculate the time of one swing or period of the pendulum. Instructors can ask students to add a standard trapeze length plus their height, then find the time it would take for the student to complete one swing, or have students calculate how long the pendulum should be in order to complete one swing in a certain amount of time. Now it's your turn. Get with a friend who teaches the same topics as you do. Decide what topic to focus on. Think about difficult topics for students or stereotypically boring concepts that could be revamped. Look for an application for that topic or skill. Remember to look for something outside of math class that students can relate to and imagine themselves in. Tap into the interests of students. Create a scenario that they could see themselves in, then write a discussion question that allows for fun, creativity, and learning. Write a guided peer reply too to help students connect more ideas with the topic. Once you've written the discussion question, widen the circle and allow others to read and reply. The more eyes on the discussion question before you present it to students, the better. Colleagues can help identify confusing language and sticking points. It's a good idea to get the discussion question proofed, tested, and finalized before handing it over to students. Here is the list of references. There is an abundance of material available on both humor and guided peer replies. These articles were chosen just for this presentation. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, please reach out.